Hello, welcome to the Jellyfish Journals. My name is Susie and I am about to start setting up my 2025 reading journal for August. Holy cow. So let's go ahead and take a look at everything I plan to use in my August spreads, and then we'll get set to decorating my pages. So as always, well, I shouldn't say as always, I should say as I've been doing this year in my reading journal, I have been scrolling through Etsy and finding different junk journal kits or ephemera kits or fussy cut kits, and really just downloading and printing the ones that I like and using those as inspiration for my spreads. So August is no different. And this month I am doing a beautiful theme, a beautiful journal kit from Leanna Scrap. And I will link her shop down in the description box below. And this one is called In Love with the Sea. Now, you might be remembering, if you've been following along, back in, I think it was March, I did already do an ocean themed spread. But this one was so pretty and had such different vibes that I just thought this would be okay to do two in 1 year. The other thing is the colors in this, the tones in this are a lot different. The other kit I did was in March was more of like under the sea, like ocean animals and things, whereas this is more of a beach shoreline vibe. And plus I am a Florida girl at heart, and you can't take the ocean out of the girl. So we're just gonna go with it. So I'm gonna kind of zoom in on some of these, and some of these elements I'm not gonna be using the way they're intended. So for example, this is a pocket. I may not use it as a pocket. I haven't decided yet, as always. But there's just some different elements. I think this is an envelope element. I may cut just this piece out. I may just use that. Not too sure. We got a little heart made out of sea glass and a ship in a bottle. That's a cute little tiny element there. Then we've got these beautiful scenes. And you'll see what I mean, how all of these are more of a beachy shoreline vibe instead of an under the sea vibe. And I like this little extra bit here that you can totally trim out and use that. I may use that as a, oh, I can't think of the word, but like a tab for my page dividers. We've got these here. This has a little quote on it. It's white and in cursive, but it is from Jacques Cousteau, so I'm sure it's an oceany quote. I'm just not going to read it right now. Got a little bit of this like architectural look here, some waves in the ocean. And then some of the colors read, oops, sorry, a little darker teal. These are a little tiny, sand and sea, live by the sea. But there are bits that read a darker teal, and I don't think I've done anything in my journal yet with this darker teal color. And so I think that's gonna be a really cool color to have in there, like a cool color vibe in there. These all look like little envelopes that, you know, you would tuck something in and slide something out of, which may be something I do. Looking here, it looks like these are thin enough. So these are thin enough across there to tuck in as like little tabs that you would pull out. I haven't done that yet in my reading journal. That might be something I explore this time. This one was really the one that caught my eye more than anything. This is probably gonna go on my August monthly page. I don't know if I'll use, there's a couple of them with ladies on them. That's not really my vibe, but we'll see where things go. Oh yeah, here's another one with a lady on it. I love the colors though, so there is a possibility. It reads romance though, and I'm not much of a romance reader, so not too sure there. This one, I love the hat. Don't really care about ocean dreams, so that might get trimmed out. And then there's just some that like this that are just really pretty little accents that would look really nice behind something else. And then it also had these two sheets. Well, one sheet, I printed it twice, and they're kind of like bookmarks. And thinking about that, I'm wondering while I'm here if these would also, oh, see, that'll pull out of there really nicely. I am getting an idea. I don't know if it would work, but I am getting an idea with this that I may experiment with. So not too sure yet. I may need to print a few more of these sheets to use them as like scrapbook paper elements in there. But this is the kit that is inspiring my August pages. And then I'm going to show you some other things that are going to go along with this a little bit. So I did pull out some markers. The first ones are some Tombow markers that I think are going to go really well. We have Tombow 990, which is a very light, almost like this light creamy color here. We've got Tombow 992, if that's going to focus. Hello, focus. Well, just trust me, it's 992. And that one's going to be like that little bit of a darker brown, like a tan color. And then we have Tombow 379, and that's going to go along with those darker aquas. So I probably won't color too much with this, but this will be a really good accent color. And then I also have this mild liner with this color top, which I have named Smoky Teal because that's what it reminds me of when I use it. So we've got some colors here. I've got some washi tapes that I might or might not use. Some of these are kind of old, so I'm not sure they can be found anymore, but I like the colors and the white in this one. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. I've got this one that I don't know, it's just says follow your bliss over and over. I like the gold in it, and I'll show you why that gold might matter in a minute. It is the teal, but it's a little off. But sometimes that can be what pulls everything together, is to have something that doesn't quite match. I have this beautiful wooden washi tape that I think came from a set from Michaels, but it kind of reminds me of driftwood a little bit. So that might work as just something fun. And I have this grid washi in this like sand color, also from a Michaels set. The only thing about the grid washi is I feel like I've used a lot of grid washi lately in my spreads in this reading journal, so I'm not sure if I want to do this or see if I have like a sand color solid washi tape. So again, we're going to play with this. I also have this PET tape that I love, and it is just beautiful. You can see in the light there, it's got this gold shimmer to it and these beautiful waves. The colors, well, I guess they do pretty much go with it really well. They're in littler bits, so it would take a little bit of creative cutting to make it work, but I think this is going to be a big element in this. I just love this PET tape so much. And again, I'll link everything down below, but this just is one of my favorite things to use if I get a chance to use it. And then I have my 3 dictionary words that I have already gone through and decided. I'm going to use the word Pacific. I'm going to use the word Atlantic, which is the ocean I used to live next to. And I'm going to use tide. And I think those 3 words really kind of pull together this whole idea of a beach or a shoreline. And then the other things I have that I may or may not use were given to me by my friend Amanda, who has gotten into journaling more. But there are some things that she had that I thought the colors went really well. This one here, so these are pretty old. I'm not sure where you would find these. I don't know, me and my big ideas. I don't know where you get that. But they're like fabric. They're almost like tags. They're like labels. And I think they're sticky, and if not, I'll glue them down. But I think these are really pretty. I think they go with this color vibe very well. She also gave me these shells that are kind of etched out. So if you can see, like you can see through, let me do a green one, that you can see through the shell. These are really pretty. These could make nice little accents. And again, the colors I think go really well with everything. And she also had these that are creative imaginations. This looks like something you used to be able to get a long time ago at scrapbooking stores. I don't know about these. I don't know if these have the vibe I'm looking for. But there are a couple of words that are kind of nice, like sandals. I like shells. I like beauty. So some of these may make a little appearance, but this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't just put in one spread. I would have to scatter it throughout all of my August spreads. That way it looks cohesive and like it's meant to be there. So these are, I'll move this up a little bit. These are all of the things that I am planning to use in my August spread. And this is me trying to make sure everything fits. And yeah, now that you've kind of seen my inspiration, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, so starting off with my August title page, just like I start with every month, I have already written down pretty much any titles for these spreads, any of the black line. I try to do that ahead of time, otherwise these videos would get very long, even if I speed them up and edit them. But my first step is to go ahead and glue some of that paper down here on the left. Now, I will say a couple things. So first of all, the paper is not long enough for the B5 journal. It is quite likely that I was supposed to print it in a different format and I didn't pay attention. That is a very Susie thing to do. And since I'd already printed them, I also hate to waste paper, and so I would not be likely to reprint them just for that. Instead, I'll find a way to make it work. And you'll see that's what I do here. I knew it was a mistake pretty much right off the bat, and so in my little planning journal where I kind of sketch out these layouts I do, these spreads, I accommodated for that already, and so you'll see how I'm going to use this wave PET tape to kind of fill in that gap at the bottom. Now you might have noticed I was trying to peel them off. These are not pre-cut. I got these off Amazon. They're not pre-cut. I would say that's probably my only complaint, but to be honest, it's really not that big a deal. There's no need to be super accurate when cutting them out. So I just kind of rough cut around the waves that I know I want to use, and then they're super easy to peel off. Once you've got them trimmed, they peel right off. There was never any trouble finding. Like some stickers, it's hard to find the backing, especially on clear ones, and I did not have that problem with these. So really what I had to do, because of the width of white space on the bottom of that scrapbook paper, I had to put a thinner layer of this wave PET tape, and then I could run the thicker waves at the bottom. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. So I'm just giving you kind of an idea of how I planned that out. Anywhere that the waves went over the month or over a letter, I just trimmed around it and then peeled off whatever part was lying on top of the letter. So you'll see here, it wasn't pulling off there, so I gotta try a different angle. And that way I'm still gonna be able to color in my letters with a marker without worrying about the PET tape getting in the way. And that's something I've pretty much done every month. Usually it's been with some kind of paper or ephemera though, not with any kind of washi or PET. So after that's been pulled off, now I'm able to take that wider wave PET tape and same thing, just a loose trim around it. If you're really particular, you could trim right up to the edge and then you won't have any of that clear extra, but it doesn't really show and it's not really a big deal to me. So you'll see here, this is how I fill that in, and anything at the bottom will just get trimmed. So I kind of kept that going, and now I'm ready to trim the backs or the extra, whatever, washi off the bottom and the sides. And you'll see I got a little aggressive and kind of cut that paper too. So that's my fault. I trimmed the page a little too short. I'm not going to worry about it, to be honest. All right, taking that lighter color Tombow, I colored that in, and now I'm going to be adding something that you did not see at the beginning of this video, and that is I was looking at it and it just looked so blue. I decided I was going to pull out some distress ink. This is Evergreen Bow. I think I said that right. And I'm kind of just using a scrap piece of paper to test it out. So I'm rubbing some on with a little brush that I got in the same ink section at the craft store. I've seen them everywhere. And now I'm just kind of laying it under to see if I like the color. And even though there's none of that tealish green on this spread, I know that it's going to show up in other spreads in this August, these August layouts. So I decided I'm just going to go for it. And one of the things that I like to do is there's a color that you really want to incorporate, maybe you love hot pink or maybe you love a plum purple, do it. Incorporate it in somewhere on every page, and your spreads will still look cohesive, even if that color doesn't actually appear in any of your ephemera or stickers. There was a little weird spot under the letter A there where it just kind of looked a little pointy to me, so I found a little scrap wave that I didn't use, and I'm just going to stick a little wave down there just to kind of fill in that gap a bit. And that should do it for this spread. I love it, and I'm really excited to show you what else I do with that ink. So this spread is for the books that I plan to read in the month of August, and these are those 4 books. And what I'll do is I will put the titles on these book spines, and then at the end of the month, if I've read all 4 of those books, I will get to color in all 4 of those books using the same colors that I've already decided to use to go along with this theme. That way, these books will add a huge pop of color, and they will also I just blanked out on what I was going to say. They'll have a huge pop of color, but it also kind of marks the accomplishment. This is probably the only reading goal that I actually stress over. I know some people stress over different book goals or reading goals they have. I don't want to leave any of these books uncolored at the end of the month. And since I know August is back to school and I'm going to be super busy, I decided I was going to go with 4 books. I think that's doable for me, and that way I won't have to worry about not reaching a 5th book. The other thing I should mention is these 4 books are books in print on my TBR shelf. So it doesn't count the audio or digital books that I'll probably get through in the month. I can definitely get through more than 4 books in a month, but I'm always trying to knock down that TBR on my physical bookshelf, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. So yeah, I stuck one of those little seashells on there, and I did want to throw in there too, the floral paper is part of the set. I don't know why, I just really thought it would look cool on that bookshelf page. So now I'm adding a little bit of washi to make a tab. I didn't like it the way it went in the other direction when I turned the page. Those like white triangular shapes are a part of the washi, and I just liked the wider part of the white spots to be more pointed inside the book. I don't know why, but it looked better to me. So I went ahead and stuck that washi tape down on the side, and that'll make a nice tab when all the pages are open and I'm back on that title page. All right, I added some more of that Evergreen Bow Distress ink at the top of the page, and that's where I'll glue the cover of my reading challenge book for the month of August. And then I added the lines, and that's just where I write a little bit of, some thoughts I had about the book, and one of those little tag labels, which are not self-adhesive. I did have to put a whole lot of glue on there to make that stick. All right. So this spread is my new book spread, and this spread is for any books that I acquire in the month of August in any fashion. And this page I do like to try to be a little creative with. I kept going back to those ephemera pockets, and I just decided I haven't done one of those yet, and I thought it would be kind of fun. I had originally decided to use pockets for my stats page, but I couldn't visualize how that would work. And so this is the spread that gets to have a little pocket. I loved the writing on it and found a little piece of cream colored paper in my stash that would fit really well, and so I just cut that down to size. I'm gluing the pocket together, and then I'm going to put a bunch of glue on the back so that it stays down really nice. I had cut off the top flap of the envelope. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I kind of loved how it looked, and it has that flower motif on it like the other pages. So even though it's not going to show very much, I thought it would really work for this page and for the look of the little envelope / pocket. I am going to go ahead and glue the word tide down on this page. There's a nice empty space on that pocket, and I thought that would look really nice there, and then just slide that back in, and that's where I'll write down my new books. On my top reads page, I am going to go ahead and put some of that driftwood washi down here on the right, and that way when I'm back on my August page, you'll see that tab. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of do the same thing I did before with some waves at the bottom, but you can see I had them trickle over to the new book spread. I thought that just kind of kept things looking nice together. These little frames you might remember from the beginning, I am going to use those as little frames for my top reads. And I did put a little bit more of that distress ink behind a couple of them just to keep that aqua teal color coming in. And then these were just 3 little, I keep calling them charms in my head, but they're not charms. They're just little ovals that say things in them, like sea glass, I think, and I forget the other 2. But I stuck those down, and I remembered that I have a little star stamp from Archer and Olive, and I'm using that and some black ink to just mark the stars. And that's where I'll put the star rating of my top reads for the month. And I'll probably color those stars in with that darker teal Tombow marker I showed at the beginning of the video. I put a little piece of paper there just in case that ink hadn't fully dried. I'm not the most patient person, but that usually leads to mistakes. And I decided I was going to take this grid washi, and I went all the way around the edges of this spread. And if you cut from the inside corner to the outside corner and peel up the tape that gets cut off, you can make some really nice crisp corners. So I do that to all 4 sides, and now I'm ready to lay down some more of that ephemera. Now usually when I plan out my spreads, I number the backs of the pieces so it's a little easier and goes a little quicker for me. I forgot to do that with these, and so you're going to see me kind of playing around, trying to figure out how I'm going to make it all fit in there. Some of the pieces I did remember where I had them, but those larger rectangles, I was a little mixed up. And you'll see in a minute that picture up on the top left with the moon, I realized very quickly that it's not going to go there, because if I put down my cream paper, it would have covered the moon, and I know I would not have done that. So now I've kind of rough laid out all of the pieces that I'm going to use on this spread. Did a little distressed ink behind the cream colored papers that are going to hold my stats. And I did the page on the right. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started on the page on the left. So again, just putting down some distressed ink. And now it's time to label all of these little sections. There are always 7 that I do. I do D and F, the books I did not finish. I do how many digital, print, and audiobooks I read, how many books I read total, how many pages I read total, and how many new books I acquired that month. And those are just the overall stats that I record in these monthly spreads. I am so happy with how this came out, and I think adding that teal distress ink was a fabulous idea to keep everything from looking too blue. All right, on to my last spread. This is my books read, and this is the spread where I'll glue down the covers of all the books that I read in the month of August. I knew I wanted to use this wave paper, but this was the only time where it was a real problem that it wasn't long enough to go down the side of the page. So I just cut off a little bit of the other one and played around with it a little bit until I figured out how I wanted it to lay. It isn't seamless by any means. So it did take a little bit of playing around, but I also knew that I had a piece of ephemera that I planned to glue over that seam, or most of the seam. So it wasn't really a problem unless you're really looking for it. To be honest, whenever I look at the spread, I've already forgotten that I did this. And so I think it's not like something jarring that catches your eye in a real negative way. I'm going to run some of that, now I'm calling it driftwood washi, across the bottom of the page. And again, an element like that just popping up here and there keeps all of your spreads cohesive. And that one piece of ephemera that I loved so much. It's like the only piece of ephemera with that light blue, but it just kind of encompasses that seashore vibe, in my opinion. I also really loved this bookmark. So I took a hole punch and poked a hole in the top. And since I didn't want my notebook to be too bulky, I decided to draw a tassel as opposed to adding a real tassel. And all I did is just use that dark teal Tombow marker, and I used the brush side. And if you kind of flick it out, it kind of lightens at the end and gives it kind of a feathery look. So now it looks like a bookmark. I'm really happy about that, except I didn't plan ahead well and my bookmark goes over the word red, but again, nothing to stress over. I decided to stick a couple of those seashells. That actually, I've edited this. It took me forever to decide where those shells would go. And I'm gonna add one more of those labels. You can see how much glue I had to use. It says walk on the beach, but I love that it brings in that dark blue. And then I'm gonna add my last definition, which is Pacific. And I love Elmer's glue sticks because I accidentally got that page stuck to the back of that when I went to trim off my ephemera. That stuck out of the edges. You can see a blob of purple glue there, and it rubs right off. So I never have any trouble with these Elmer's glue sticks pulling or ripping or anything like that. But that'll do it for my last spread. Ooh, I am so happy with how this turned out. So this page is the title page, the monthly title page, and it ended up being a little more oceany than I meant it to, as far as like waves. But I had a little piece of ephemera that looked like a little ship in a bottle, so I added that in just a couple minutes ago, and I think it just kind of makes it cuter. Then on this page, we've got the 4 books that I'm planning to read in the month of August, and I'll color those in once I have read them at the end of the month. Then this is where my book prompt is going to go, which is the book Schooled. It's the lowest rated book on my TBR, and I'll glue a picture of that right there. This is where I'm going to put new books that I've read, and I'll put them in this little pocket here. This little paper, but the paper goes in the pocket. These are my top 3 reads, my top 3 favorites, because sometimes I have more than 1 or 2 or 3 5-star reads. So these will be the ones that stuck and are most memorable. Then this is for all my stats for the month. And this is where I'll glue all the covers for all the books that I read in the month of August. I hope you enjoyed, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing, and yeah, leave a comment. I love chatting. Have a great day. Bye.